What is up, everyone? JD here. Hope you're doing well today. Today, I have a blade battle for you. We have a couple of contenders that I think are very interesting. First, we're going to bring out the Sharp by Design Mini Tempest. Haven't seen this one out in a little while. And we're going to be looking at its competitor today, which is going to be the Kunwu Tao Compact. Let's get into it. All right, so what we're going to be doing today is we're just going to kind of run through a few categories to compare these two knives. I think they're very, very interesting comparisons, and I'm really excited to bring them to you in today's blade battle. So let's go ahead and start with the Kunwu Tao. So the Kunwu Tao has a 4.4 inch titanium handle. It has a Damascus collar for a little pop of color, orange peel on the handles to help with the grip, and you have some micro milling all along the edges here also to help with the grip, and I think for some quite pleasing aesthetics. It does have a reversible deep carry wire pocket clip, titanium back spacer, and it has the lanyard hole here. This one is a frame lock, and in the frame lock you do have some additional micro milling that goes along the edge here, so it gives it plenty of grip. The other thing that I really like about the compact is that you do have this landing pad here, which is really nice for the forward finger, and then all four fingers for me do fit on this knife quite comfortably. So I really like that. The jimping is really well done and well placed here on the back, so when you're using the knife in a detailed position, you have a spot to grip onto. It is also quite capable. You can use this for push cuts. It is very slicey. The LMAX is treated fairly well. I believe the range is 60 to 62 on the LMAX. So it is a really acceptable heat treat that is done really well, and I really like that a lot. It doesn't feel too skinny, so you do have good access to the lock bar. They did knock it down a little bit there, and they chamfered it out, so I can get in there for all of the ways to disengage it. If you like to let it fall shut to the nail, if you like to open and lift, or if you like to do the little European style where you just kind of push and let it fall shut. So very comfortable ergos. I like that one a lot. Now let's get over to the Sharp by Design Mini Tempest. What I like about the Tempest is this one takes a completely different approach, completely smooth scales, very smooth transitions on the inlay, really nicely contoured all around the edges. And whereas this is a flat scale, this one is contoured, so it tends to feel more chunky in hand. You do get a little bit more room out on the handle for the hand, so that is nice. You get a little bit more wiggle room. You can move around a little bit and make an adjustment as well. It is a frame lock, but it does have the inlay here, and that does help protect so that when you're going to deploy this left-handed, it's not going to deter you from being able to use that fuller for the reverse flick. Takes me a minute to find it. Every time I come back to this knife, I have to remember where to put my finger, but you can use it left-handed. That is the point on there. I really like the aesthetics of this. I think the inlay gives it a little bit more of a design aesthetic over top of the Tao. So I personally am going to give the win for the ergonomics to the Sharp by Design Mini Tempest because the contouring and the knocks down edges feel really good. But that's not to say that the Tao is uncomfortable. You just notice that it's a bit more blocky in hand, especially when you're going back and forth between the two. But it is still very comfortable. It has a nice tall scale to it, so that height really does help with how it feels in hand. So it is very comfortable. I just feel like the Mini Tempest with the chamfered edge and the rolling and soft edges all throughout the knife are just very, very comfortable. When it comes to grip, I would probably give that advantage in that specific category to the compact Tao. The reason I say that is because you do have the orange peel, which does lend a little bit of grip as opposed to the completely smooth scales on the Sharp by Design Mini Tempest. You also have the micro milling on here that does play a factor as far as how you can grip onto it. But that's not to say that the Sharp by Design Mini Tempest is bad. They make up for the smoothness by having just a little bit of like that gritty feeling in the finish that's on the top of those scales. So it's not super smooth. It has like that matte finish is what I'd like to call it. And then you do have the cutouts here, which help put the fingers in a good position and excellent jimping on the spine of the blade, so that it helps keep you in a secure position. I'm just giving a slight advantage to the grip confidence over to the towel, so I like that a lot. Next, we're going to talk about blade. So we talked a little bit about the LMAX blade here on the Towel Compact. Really good heat treat range of 60 to 62. Beautiful belt satin finish on here. Very thin, tall, flat grind, very slicey. I really like the performance of this one. It's done really well. I'm essentially using this to get into packages, to open things, to cut random things throughout the day. I'm not really using this to break down a ton of boxes. Having said that, I have done that where I've had this on me. I had a box. I have too many boxes that I've saved. So I use this to kind of cut it down into squares to be able to fit into the recycling bin without any issues. And it has performed really, really well. So I do like that. I love the finish. I love the steel, and I love the heat treat. Now, this Reate made knife has an M390 blade. Both of these, by the way, are, well, I think the compact towel, yeah, it's a drop point. So both of these are drop points. But getting back to the Reate made Sharp by Design Mini Tempest, this has M390. This has an extremely thin and slicey blade. Nice flats here for cutting through the material, whereas you have a little bit more belly on the towel. You don't have as tall of a flat grind, but because it is already super thin for the geometry on this one, it does slice really, really well, especially out on the tip. It gets super thin out here towards the tip. So if you're trying to get into packages and you're trying to do detailed work with this, you're going to be able to get through the tape with little to no resistance. You're going to be able to get into your package with little to no resistance, especially if you're trying to use the edge for the detailed work. It works really nicely, but it is still a capable performer for being more of a gentlemanly office type carry, where I feel like if you took this out in those environments, you're really not going to get a whole lot of eyebrow raising at yourself. So I really like that both of these do offer that, but it is quite capable. I have broken down boxes because I've had this one longer, and it does really, really well. It seems like the M390 from Reate has a really good heat treat, but I don't know the range on it. So I do want to preface it that I don't know the heat treat on the Reate made knife, but I do know that Kunwu listens to the community. They're very interested in a proper heat treat on there, and it's really nice. Now, as far as the finish on the Sharp by Design, you do have the side-to-side hand satin finish, which I think lends to a little bit more of an aesthetic finish overall. It looks a little bit more classy, and Reate does a really good job on that finish. It looks very even and consistent and well blended, whereas I would say on the Kunwu, you see more of the hard hits on the belt lines. I do like the look of it, but you can kind of see where the heaviness on the finish hits, so not as refined of a finish on it. So for the blade, I would give, as far as the performance, a tie. As the finishes, I would give that towards the Sharp by Design made by Reate. Very good finishes. Looks really, really nice. Even the tones and the colors, you got more polish and less polish here. So just a little bit nicer on that Sharp by Design. Now let's talk about action. And before I forget, you do have good access to the lock bar. I think I skipped over that. They do a really nice job of giving you generous access to that lock bar. You can come in with this one also from the side. You can lift up very easily on this one, and then you can do that European style closing or traditional style closing, whichever you prefer on that one. Now let's talk about action. Action on these knives are really good. Both have really nice detents. You have the exclusive or proprietary nub, which is a little bit different than your detent ball, and it provides very satisfying action because it does have good strength of detent. So the nub is right up against the blade's edge. It's like a little bit more of a rolling hill than it is a complete ball. So it makes almost immediate contact coming out of the break. And the way that that hill kind of works, it allows it to have that guillotine style action and fall shut. So it's very smooth feeling. Very little feedback in the handle when it's actuated, meaning open and closing. You're not feeling it rolling or anything like that in the pivot. Now, I do have skiffs in here, but the first variant that I had of this, I did not swap to skiffs. I just left the factory bearings in there, and it was very smooth. The skiffs do feel a little bit smoother. They feel like they glide a little bit nicer. I mean, just ever so slightly. It's not a huge difference, but I can tell it is a little bit of a difference. Now, the detent strength, I can't fail it, but it doesn't feel like you're overcoming it, like it's as strong as some detent ball knives that I've felt, but it does feel like it works really good. I think that has to do more so with the nub and how it's designed than it is that it's weak compared to a detent ball. I think it's just a different feeling because it's a different type of system. Now, with the Kunwu Tao Compact, this has multi-row bearings on nylon washers. They look like they're very nicely sized bearings as well. So this one is very smooth. Again, same thing that you find on the Sharp by Design, little to no feedback. Really good detent on the deployment. It works well with both the front and regular flipper tab, so it doesn't feel like it's easily failed. And actually, I whiffed a little bit there because I was riding too much on the edge. With this one here, I find that you got to do like a follow through, because if you try to push button and hit it, it's going to land on the finger and it's going to kind of pinch you, which is a little bit of a knock on the knife, but it's not a big deal, honestly. Once you figure it out, the first time you do it, you realize that you're actually kind of just pulling down and following through on it. But the action's really good. The break is very early, as I'll whiff again, or it's decent. I wouldn't say it's early. Like there is that's where your detent ball is, and then with that ramp, I think this one has a ramp. I'm not 100% sure now that I'm saying it though, but it's not hard to overcome. So once you get to this point here, it's not hard to break. Just a little, my finger's on the lock bar, just a little bit more. So there you go. Hold on. I'm really trying to show you where the break is. Actually, I'm already on the knife. So right here, yeah, it definitely has a ramp the way that it's sliding back. So right there, you're actually on the detent ball. And once you're on the detent ball, it's just a couple of shakes to send it home. So it's really smooth and very well tuned out from the factory. So I would probably say, I feel like the detent feels better on the detent ball feeling wise, but I would say that the smoothness goes to the Sharp by Design. So depending on what it is that you like, if you feel like you like that stronger, more stout detent where it feels like you got to really apply the pressure, that detent ball is going to feel better. The detent nub is going to require the pressure, but it's going to feel like it's a light break by comparison. And again, that's just because of the smoothness of the nub, not because it's not strong enough to hold that blade in place until you're ready to ramp up to deploy it. So hopefully I'm making that very clear. So while I have the compact towel out here, let's talk about deployment methods. So you have the front flipper and you have the flipper tab. Both work well, as I mentioned, with the detent. Both have really good adequate jimping. I feel like the jimping's sharp enough on the front. I wish they would have carried it all the way up and over, because I feel like as you go towards the top you could slip, but in all fairness, I haven't slipped off of it, so it's worked really well. You have smaller, tighter jimping on the flipper tab, which I really like because you can grip onto it. Now, again, I feel like going around would have helped here, because as I go towards the tip, you saw that I whiffed earlier. I got to remind myself I have to come all the way up and make full contact with all the jimping that's there to get this to work well, because it does have that stronger detent. You don't have any feedback, as I mentioned before, in the bearings for deployment. It's very smooth and the feedback is wonderful. And then we'll talk about the Sharp by Design Mini Tempest. This one here has sharp jimping. While it doesn't go around as well, I feel like where they started the jimping and because of the spacing on it, it actually works really, really well. I cannot complain, because I feel like even when I go up, I don't have an issue. And that could be also because this has more of that unicorn tip here over top of where the pivot is. So your pivot's way down here, and you have all of this tab up here for that front flipper. Now, for the reverse flick, it's a little tight for larger hands. I have to kind of dig in, and then once I'm in there, the fuller is sharp enough to where I can reverse flick it. There's no thumb flicking on here. It's just a reverse flick and the flipper tab. So both have two means of deployment. I would say that the regular flipper tab works better than the reverse flick here, and I would say that the front flipper tab I feel like is a little bit better feeling on the Sharp by Design than it is over the Tao Compact. So having said all of that, we blew through a bunch of categories, so I'm just going to kind of summarize. For ergonomics, for me, I felt like the Sharp by Design was a little bit better. For the lock bar access, both of them are very good, so I would put that at a tie. I would say the action and the pivot and everything is a tie. They're both very smooth and feel very nice. For the detent, I feel like the detent ball tune feels better because it feels snappier than the Sharp by Design, but the Sharp by Design feels smoother while still being fairly snappy. So I would give that a slight victory to the towel with the detent ball because it feels a little bit snappier. It feels a little bit stronger to me, and I have a preference for a stronger detent. Now again, the Sharp by Design is very smooth, and that is not a knock on it. I really like the way that that one feels. As far as the blade, I would give that to the Sharp by Design. It's a little bit thinner overall. I think aesthetically, the side-to-side finish is a little bit more refined than what you're seeing on the towel. It's a little bit longer, but you know, I did pick the knife. So, you know, the Mini Tempest has a 3.5 inch, whereas the Towel Compact has a 3.07 inch. So I did pick it that it is a little bit smaller, but I would just say the way that they did the belly, you have so much flat surface on here where you have just a little bit less. And of course, if this was 3.5 inches also, it probably would have equal belly, but it just has that more consistent rise on it. Whereas I feel like you have a true flat for a ways out on this one before you start to get that steady rise up on the blade. Overall, who is the winner on this? There's one more factor that I haven't covered yet that I do want to touch on, and that is price. When this Mini Tempest dropped with this particular configuration, it was $425. Right now, as of this video, on Kunwu's website, $199 for the Towel Compact. That's a huge price difference. So I do want to talk about that. I would say, does this feel like $225 more of a knife over the Towel Compact? This may surprise you, but no, I don't think so. I really don't. As much as I love that Mini Tempest, and I really understand the price point, they're limited batches, limited runs, designer knives that are in production, and I get it. But for me, I can't in good conscience declare the Sharp by Design the victor because that price point to me doesn't justify the gap between the two knives. This Kunwu towel at $199, 60 to 62 heat treat, lock bar access, action, deployment methods, value for money on this knife is outstanding. Both of these are Chinese made knives too, so there's no country of origin advantage for either one of these. You do have a reversible deep carry clip, so this is left hand friendly. Now I will say what saves this one is it doesn't have the fuller. So as a lefty, you can easily operate this knife left-handed and staying off the lock bar without it being too uncomfortable in my experience. I am right-handed, slightly ambidextrous. I can do a lot of stuff with the left hand that I can do with the right, but I would just have to say that the knife itself is so well done. For the money, it's really hard to beat what Kunwu is putting out there, and I don't think, now if this Mini Tempest was $330, like what you see with some of the Veros, the Relatives, the Quiet Carries, things of that nature. $330, $130 difference, I would say yes, because you have the proprietary nub. It's extremely refined for the action. It feels so smooth. There is zero feedback. It feels like it's just going to fall shut by itself, like you don't need to help it. The lines are a little bit cleaner. The edges are a little bit more knocked down. It's just a more refined build. I would say yes, the Sharp by Design would win. But because there's that extra $100 on that Sharp by Design Mini Tempest, for me personally, I have to go with the Towel Compact as today's winner. I think a lot of you are probably going to be surprised. I bet you thought when this video was starting that I was going to go with that Sharp by Design Mini Tempest, and I do love that knife. I think it's really well made. I'm very happy to have it in my collection, but I got mine on the secondary market at that $300 price point. So for me, at that price point, it's a much easier pill to swallow. I saved $125 by not buying it new, and I got the one with the marble fat carbon. So the shredded carbon fiber version of it was still, I want to say like $375 or so. So still pretty expensive in my opinion, but at that $330, I think that's where things get a little bit tighter because of the disparity in the finishes for me. That's not going to be as important to everyone, and I do understand that. So having said all that, let me know in the comment down below, who would you have picked? Would you have gone with the Mini Tempest, or would you have gone with my winner, which is the compact towel? I really do like this price point. I love the finishes on it. Some of the ways that they're able to save that money is because they use steel hardware instead of titanium hardware. You're getting all titanium hardware on the towel compact. You know, it is a detent ball, multi-row bearings on nylon washers, which is probably a little bit cheaper to manufacture, but don't let that discourage you. Those ceramic balls that are multi-row give stability in the pivot, give really impressively smooth action, really smooth action. I like it a lot. I hope you enjoyed this blade battle. Thank you, and a shout out to everyone out there that regularly leaves the likes, comments, and is subscribed. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope all of you have a fantastic week. Until next time, peace.